Heath Ledger didn't die in his apartment. He died hours after 3 unidentified people left his building. The 911 call came at 3:26 p.m., but paramedic dispatch records show they were already en route at 3:24 p.m. before anyone officially called, and 2 critical forms documenting Heath's initial examination vanished from police evidence for 18 hours before mysteriously reappearing with sections redacted. This video reveals who entered Heath's building in his final hours, why his masseuse called Mary-Kate Olsen before calling 911, what the missing toxicology timeline shows about when he actually died, and why investigators who worked the case believe the evidence was tampered with to protect people who were there when Heath took his last breath. The masseuse's hands were shaking as she held the phone. Not dialing 911, not yet. She was calling Mary-Kate Olsen, Heath's friend, the actress who could send private security, the person who could make this go away quietly. He's not breathing. I don't know what to do. Mary-Kate's voice came through calm and commanding. Don't call anyone yet. I'm sending people. Wait for them. Diana Wollaston stood in Heath Ledger's bedroom doorway, staring at his body face down on the bed. Cold, stiff, obviously dead. But she waited, like she'd been told. And in those 9 minutes before she finally called 911, someone had time to remove evidence from the apartment that would never be recovered. Monday, January 21st, 2008. Heath Ledger woke up after maybe 2 hours of sleep. He'd been awake most of the night, pacing his apartment, making phone calls, writing in his diary. His housekeeper Teresa Solomon arrived at 8 a.m., found Heath in the kitchen, exhausted. Rough night? She asked. Heath nodded. Can't sleep. Nothing works anymore. Teresa had been working for Heath for 6 months. She'd watched him deteriorate. The insomnia getting worse, the pills increasing, the paranoia creeping in. You should see a doctor, a real doctor, not just for pills. Heath shook his head. They can't help. I need to figure this out myself. He went back to his bedroom, closed the door. Teresa heard him on the phone, couldn't make out the words, but his tone was agitated, almost desperate. At 11 a.m., building security cameras captured someone entering Heath's apartment building. A man, early 40s, wearing a baseball cap and sunglasses, carrying a small bag. He wasn't buzzed in. He had a key or access code. He went directly to the 4th floor, to Heath's apartment. Security footage shows him leaving 45 minutes later, still carrying the bag. This man has never been identified. Never came forward, never explained why he was in Heath's apartment the morning Heath died. Building management gave police the footage. It was entered into evidence, then sealed as not relevant to investigation. But several detectives privately disagreed. They wanted to know who this man was, and what he brought to or took from Heath's apartment. They were told to drop it. At 1 p.m., Heath called his masseuse Diana Wollaston. Can you come over? I need to relax. Can't think straight. Diana had an appointment with another client, but Heath sounded desperate. I'll be there at 1, but I can only stay an hour. That's fine, just need someone here. Something in his voice worried her, but she didn't know what. At 1:15 p.m., Heath's phone records show he received a call from an unlisted number. The call lasted 3 minutes. Immediately after, Heath texted Teresa, going to try to sleep, don't disturb me. Teresa was in the living room. She heard Heath's bedroom door close, locked from inside. That was the last time anyone admits to seeing Heath Ledger alive. But building security cameras tell a different story. At 1:45 p.m., 2 people entered the building. A man and a woman, well-dressed, professional. They were buzzed in, went to the 4th floor. Security footage shows them at Heath's door, knocking, waiting. The door opened. They went inside. They stayed for 18 minutes. Security cameras captured them leaving at 2:03. The woman was carrying something that looked like a folder or envelope. These 2 people have never been identified, never came forward, never explained why they were at Heath's apartment 90 minutes before his body was found. Police questioned the building's security staff. We're told the footage was reviewed and showed nothing significant. But that footage was never made public, and investigators who wanted to pursue it were reassigned to other cases. Someone didn't want those 2 people identified. Someone with enough influence to shut down that line of investigation. Diana Wollaston arrived at Heath's building at 2:45 p.m. She was let in by building security, took the elevator to the 4th floor. Teresa Solomon opened the door. He's in his bedroom, said he was trying to sleep. Diana walked down the hallway to Heath's bedroom. Door was closed. She knocked softly. Heath, it's Diana. I'm here for your massage. No answer. She knocked again, louder. Heath, nothing. Diana looked at Teresa. Should we check on him? Teresa hesitated. He said don't disturb him, but it's been over an hour. Diana tried the door. It wasn't locked, opened easily. She stepped inside, and immediately knew something was wrong. Heath was face down on the bed, fully clothed, one arm hanging off the edge, completely still. Diana rushed over, touched his shoulder. His skin was cold, Stiff. She checked for a pulse. Nothing. No breathing. No heartbeat. Heath Ledger was dead. Had been dead for hours. Here's where the timeline gets strange. Diana Olsen should have immediately called 911. That's protocol. That's what anyone would do. But she didn't. Instead, at 3:17 p.m., she called Mary-Kate Olsen. Why? What did she think Mary-Kate could do that emergency services couldn't? The call lasted 2 minutes. Then Diana made another call, at 3:21 p.m., to an unlisted number. Who was that call to? Police never revealed it. Diana never explained it. Only then, at 3:26 p.m., did Diana call 911. But here's the problem. Paramedic dispatch records show units were already en route to Heath's address at 3:24 p.m., 2 minutes before Diana's official 911 call. Someone else had already called. Someone whose identity was never made public. Who called 911 before Diana did? And why isn't that call in the official record? The 911 call that is public. Diana's call at 3:26 p.m. is disturbing. Diana sounds panicked but also confused, like she's been given instructions she's trying to follow. 911 operator, what's the emergency? Diana, I need help. He's unconscious. Who is unconscious? I'm with a patient. He's not breathing. What's the address? Diana gives the address. Then adds, please hurry. But also, someone is coming. Private security. Ma'am, paramedics are already on the way. Who is coming? I don't know, I was told they're coming. The operator tries to give CPR instructions. Diana says she's trying, but her responses are distracted, like she's talking to someone else in the room. Who else was there? The 911 call only mentions Diana, but her behavior suggests someone was coaching her, telling her what to say and what not to say. Paramedics arrived at 3:33 p.m., 7 minutes after the official 911 call, but 13 minutes after dispatch records show they were sent. They found Heath's apartment door open. Diana waiting in the living room. He's in the bedroom. I think he's dead. Paramedics rushed in, confirmed what Diana already knew. Heath was dead. Body temperature and rigor mortis indicated he'd been deceased for several hours. They asked Diana when she found him. She said 3:15 p.m., but her phone records show she made that first call to Mary-Kate at 3:17 p.m., which means she found him before 3:17. So why did she tell paramedics 3:15? What happened in those 2 minutes before she called Mary-Kate? And who did she call at 3:21 p.m. before finally calling 911? These questions were asked during the investigation, but the answers were never made public. Someone was protecting Diana, or protecting whoever she was calling. While paramedics were examining Heath's body, a team arrived at the apartment. Not police, not more medical personnel, private security, sent by Mary-Kate Olsen, arriving remarkably fast considering Mary-Kate was in California and had to dispatch them to New York, unless they were already nearby, already waiting. The security team entered the apartment, spoke briefly with Diana, then went into Heath's bedroom. Paramedics were still there. Police hadn't arrived yet. What were the security team doing? What were they looking for? One paramedic later testified that the security team seemed to be securing the scene, looking around, taking photos with their phones. Securing what? Photos of what? When police arrived 15 minutes later, the security team was gone. They'd left without identifying themselves to officers. Police tried to track them down. Mary-Kate's representative said she'd sent them to see if they could help. But help with what? Heath was already dead. Paramedics were already there. What could private security do except remove evidence before police arrived? In the days following Heath's death, Mary-Kate Olsen refused to cooperate with police investigation. She was subpoenaed to testify about why Diana called her first, and why she sent security to Heath's apartment. Mary-Kate's lawyers fought the subpoena. Eventually, she gave a brief statement through attorneys. Miss Olsen was a close friend of Mr. Ledger. When informed of the emergency, she attempted to help by sending personnel who could provide assistance. She has no additional information relevant to the investigation, but investigators wanted to know, what did Diana tell Mary-Kate in that first phone call? What instructions did Mary-Kate give? Why were those instructions to wait before calling 911? Mary-Kate never answered those questions under oath. Her legal team successfully blocked detailed testimony, and the private security team she sent, they were never identified, never questioned, never asked what they did in Heath's apartment before police arrived. Someone with significant legal resources and political connections protected Mary-Kate Olsen and her security team from having to explain their actions that day. Why? What were they hiding? The medical examiner's report concluded Heath died from acute intoxication by the combined effects of 6 drugs: oxycodone, painkiller; hydrocodone, painkiller; diazepam, Valium, temazepam, sleeping pill; alprazolam, Xanax; doxylamine, antihistamine. The ruling: accidental overdose. Heath had taken too many medications trying to sleep, but toxicology experts who reviewed the report found problems with this conclusion. The levels of drugs in Heath's system didn't match a pattern of someone taking pills throughout the evening trying to fall asleep. They matched something else. Cyril Vecht, forensic pathologist, reviewed Heath's toxicology report and said, "The distribution of drugs suggests they were taken at different times, but the timing doesn't fit the narrative of gradual self-medication." What Dr. Wecht meant, the pills in Heath's system should have shown a pattern. Earlier medications metabolized more, later medications less metabolized. But Heath's toxicology showed something different. Some drugs that should have been more metabolized weren't. Some that should have been less metabolized were. It suggested the drugs weren't all taken by Heath voluntarily at regular intervals. It suggested someone might have given him additional medications, or that the timing of ingestion wasn't what the official story claimed. Another forensic expert noted, the level of oxycodone alone should have rendered him unconscious. The combination with 5 other central nervous system depressants should have stopped his breathing within hours. But the body's position and rigor mortis suggest he was alive and mobile much longer than the drug levels indicate he should have been. Translation: Heath's body showed he died later than the drugs in his system suggest he should have died. How is that possible? 2 forms that would have explained this discrepancy went missing from the medical examiner's file. Form 1. Initial examination notes documenting Heath's body position, lividity, and rigor mortis, evidence that establishes time of death. Form 2. Preliminary toxicology timeline showing when drugs were likely ingested based on metabolization levels. Both forms were logged into evidence on January 22, the day Heath's body was found. Both forms disappeared from the file before the official report was released. The medical examiner's office claimed they were temporarily misfiled. They reappeared 18 hours later. But when they reappeared, sections had been redacted. Information that had been documented was now blacked out. What information was removed? Why was it considered too sensitive to include in a public report about an accidental overdose? Several investigators wanted answers. They were told the redactions were made to protect privacy of individuals not relevant to cause of death. But how could individuals be relevant enough to redact but not relevant enough to investigate, unless those individuals were being protected by someone with authority over the investigation? Police found multiple prescription pill bottles in Heath's apartment. Some were prescribed to Heath Ledger, some weren't. 3 bottles contained pills prescribed to other people. Names were redacted in police reports, but the prescriptions existed, documented, photographed. Who gave Heath pills that weren't prescribed to him? Why did he have medications belonging to others? The official explanation: Heath had trouble sleeping. Friends and colleagues who knew this sometimes gave him their own sleeping pills to help. But this raises obvious questions. Who were these friends? Why were they giving him controlled substances? Did they know he was taking multiple other medications? And most importantly, were any of these non-prescribed pills among the drugs that killed him? Police investigated the prescription bottle owners, spoke to them briefly, then closed that line of inquiry. The official statement: the non-prescribed medications found in the apartment were not a contributing factor to the cause of death. But how could they know that without revealing which drugs came from which bottles? Without testing whether the levels of those specific drugs in Heath's system matched the pills in those bottles? The investigation into where Heath got his non-prescribed medications was shut down before it could determine who was supplying him and why. One detective who worked the case spoke anonymously years later. There were pills in that apartment that raised red flags, prescriptions that shouldn't have been there. We wanted to follow up, interview the people those prescriptions belonged to, find out how much they'd given him and when. What happened? We were told it wasn't relevant, that Heath's death was clearly accidental, that pursuing the prescription sources would just hurt innocent people who were trying to help a friend. Do you believe that? I believe someone made a phone call, and after that phone call we were told to stop asking questions about the pills. Who made that call? Who had the authority to shut down investigation into controlled substances found at a death scene? That person was never identified, and the detective who questioned the decision was transferred to a different unit shortly after. According to the official timeline, Heath died sometime between 1 a.m. and 3 a.m. on January 22nd. This was determined by body temperature, rigor mortis, and lividity when paramedics examined him at 3:33 p.m. But there's a problem with this timeline that was never resolved. At 3 a.m. on January 22nd, Heath's phone records show he made an 11-minute call to an unlisted number. If Heath died between 1 to 3 a.m. and he made a call at 3 a.m., then either he was alive at 3 a.m., which means he died later than medical evidence suggests. Someone else made that call from his phone after he died. Neither option fits the official narrative. Police investigated the 3 a.m. call, tried to determine who Heath spoke to, hit a wall. The number was unlisted. Registered to a corporation. Police requested records. Were told the corporation had dissolved and records were unavailable. Conveniently, the one call that could establish exactly when Heath died and who he was talking to in his final hours became untraceable. Building security cameras might have resolved this. Cameras covered the elevator and hallway on Heath's floor. They would show who came and went during the critical hours when Heath died. Police requested footage for January 21st, 10 p.m. through January 22nd, 4 a.m. Building management provided footage, but it had a gap. From 2:30 a.m. to 3:45 a.m., the cameras malfunctioned. No footage existed for that 75-minute window, the exact window when Heath died, when the mysterious 3 a.m. phone call was made, when someone might have been in his apartment. All of that missing from security footage. Building management claimed the malfunction was coincidental, a technical issue that happened to occur during those specific hours. But the cameras worked fine before 2:30 a.m. and worked fine again after 3:45 a.m. Just during the critical window, nothing. One security guard who worked that night gave a statement to police that was never included in official reports. The guard claimed he was told to reset the system at 2:30 a.m. by someone claiming to be building management. When he questioned why, he was told it was routine maintenance, but maintenance had never been done at 2:30 a.m. before. When he came back at 3:45 a.m., the system had been wiped for that time period. Who authorized that reset? Who knew to do it at exactly the time Heath died? The guard's statement raised questions investigators wanted to pursue. They were told the security footage issue was not suspicious and to focus on other aspects of the case. 3 people entered Heath Ledger's building during his final day. The man at 11 a.m. who had a key and stayed 45 minutes. The professional couple at 1:45 p.m. who left with documents, and possibly someone during the missing security footage window from 2:30 to 3:45 a.m. All 3 were captured on camera. All 3 were documented in security logs. None of them have ever been publicly identified. In the immediate investigation, police tried to locate them, wanted to know who they were and why they were at Heath's apartment. Building management claimed they didn't recognize the people in the footage. But in a luxury Manhattan building with tight security, how do multiple people access a floor without being buzzed in by the resident? They'd need keys or codes. Who gave them access? Why? These questions were asked, never answered. And after the first week of investigation, when the case was ruled accidental overdose, the search for these unidentified visitors quietly ended. One person who briefly came forward was a friend of Heath's, who claimed to have visited him on January 21st. The friend gave a statement to police. "I stopped by around 11 a.m. Heath seemed anxious. He said people were bothering him, asking him questions he didn't want to answer. I stayed maybe 30 minutes. He asked me to leave because he was expecting someone." This friend matched the description of the man captured on security footage at 11 a.m. But in follow-up interviews, the friend changed his story, said he'd gotten the date wrong, that he hadn't actually been there on the 21st. Why did he change his story? What made him suddenly remember he wasn't there that day? Police noted the discrepancy, but didn't pursue it. The friend refused further interviews and hired a lawyer. To this day, that friend has never publicly discussed what he saw or heard during his visit to Heath's apartment on the day Heath died. What did Heath tell him about the people asking questions? What was Heath anxious about? Who was he expecting after his friend left? Those answers died with Heath, or are being protected by people who don't want to talk. Heath Ledger's death was ruled accidental overdose within 48 hours of his body being found, remarkably fast for a high-profile case with multiple inconsistencies. Most accidental overdose investigations take weeks. Toxicology reports alone typically take 4 to 6 weeks. Heath's took 10 days, and the conclusion was announced before the full toxicology report was even complete. Why the rush? Several investigators on the case questioned the speed, said there were too many unanswered questions to close it so quickly. They were overruled. A former NYPD detective who worked the case said, "We were told this was open and shut. Accidental overdose. Don't complicate it. Don't create conspiracy theories. Close it and move on. Who told you that? Someone above our pay grade. Someone who wanted this case buried." In the months after Heath's death, 3 pieces of evidence disappeared from police files. The full unredacted version of the initial examination forms showing body position and lividity. The complete phone records showing all calls made to and from Heath's phone in his final 24 hours. The unedited building security footage showing all visitors to the 4th floor on January 21st. All 3 were logged into evidence. All 3 later went missing or were replaced with redacted versions. When investigators requested access to the original unredacted evidence, they were told it had been misplaced or destroyed per standard protocol, but none of those items should have been destroyed. They were evidence in a celebrity death that was still generating public interest and questions. Someone with access to police evidence made those documents disappear. Someone who didn't want certain information becoming public. Who had that kind of access? Who had motive to hide evidence? The most likely answer, someone who was at Heath's apartment that day. Someone whose presence wasn't in the official story. Someone powerful enough to make evidence vanish. Heath Ledger died in his apartment at 421 Broome Street, New York on January 22, 2008. The official story: he accidentally took too many medications trying to sleep. Tragic but straightforward. But the actual evidence tells a different story. A story of unidentified visitors in the hours before his death. of missing security footage during the critical window, of a mysterious phone call made at the exact time he was supposedly dying, of pills that weren't his, of evidence that disappeared, of people who refused to talk about what they saw and heard. The questions remain: who was in Heath's apartment when he died? Who called 911 before Diana's official call? Who removed evidence from the scene? What were those 3 visitors doing there? We'll never know the complete truth, because the people who were there aren't talking. The evidence that could answer questions is gone, and the investigation was closed before those questions could be pursued. Heath Ledger died at 28 years old. The official cause was accidental overdose, but the evidence suggests people were with him when he died. People who made sure the story stayed simple. People who had something to hide. And those people are still out there, still silent, still protected by whoever made that evidence disappear. Room 3110 wasn't his room number, but it became his tomb, and the truth about what happened there died with him.